Welcome to Lesson 41 of Numbers and Operations. Compare and order rational numbers, Part 1. Here's our objective, our vocabulary, some rules and notes for you, and our first example. So here we have 5 3/4 and 5 5/8. Let's first write these as good looking fractions. So 5 3/4 and 5 5/8. So if we compare 3/4 and 5/8, we can see that they have different bottoms. And we can't compare them unless they had the same bottom. So, as fractions. So what I'm going to do is look at the 4 and the 8. And you see that 4 times 2 is 8. So if I multiply this fraction by 2 over 2, I get 6 over 8, which is an equivalent fraction. And I get 5 over 8. These are equivalent fractions. 3/4 and 6/8 have the same value as a decimal, but they're just different numbers in a fraction, and that's called equivalent fractions. So I'm going to pick up the rest of this on the next slide. So now we see that 5 3/4 is 5 6/8 compared to 5 5/8. Now what we had to do is name a fraction between them, where there's only one number between 5 and 6. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to multiply both of these fractions by 2 over 2 to see if we can fit a number in between. And now 6 times 2 is 12 and 8 times 2 is 16. So 5 becomes 12 over 16, 5 6/8. And then 5 5/8 becomes 5 10 over 16. And 10 and 12 are two numbers apart from each other, and we can actually stick a 5 and 11/16 in between them. But now we want them from smallest to largest. So 10 is smaller than 11, which is smaller than 12. So to put them in order, I write 5 and 10 over 16, comma, 5 and 11 over 16, and then 5 and 12 over 16. But we're not done yet. We have to reduce these fractions down. And we know that 10 over 16 is the same as 5 and 5/8, so we're going to write 5 and 5/8, 5 and 11/16, and then 12/16 was 3/4, and you'll do that when you divide top and bottom by 4 over 4. You'll get 5 and 3/4. Now this is the correct answer on a test. This answer is correct, but the fractions are not simplified. So make sure you simplify your fractions. Okay, let's look at example number 2. List the fractions in order from greatest to least. Oh, look at this. Well, we have a decimal in here. So what are we going to do? Well, what we're going to have to do is turn these two fractions into decimals and then put them in order from greatest to least, and then turn this into some type of fraction. So there are multiple steps to do. So I want you to remember all of the things we did. So let's turn these two into decimals before we move on. So 2 divided by 5. You drop the 2 down. 5 goes into 2 0 times. Put a decimal, add a 0. 5 goes into 24 times, and we get 0. So 2/5 equals 0.4. Now let's do 2 over 7. 2 over 7, drop it down, 2. 7 goes into 2 0 times. It goes into 22 times. 14, 6, put a 0. 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract, we get 4, put a 0. 7 goes in at 5 times. 5 times 7 is 35. Put a 0, bring it down, because 7 doesn't go into 5, but 7 goes into 57 times. 49, 1, put a 0, put a 0. 1 times 7 is 7. You get a 3. Oh, we haven't repeated a number yet, have we? 4. 4 times 7 is 28. And we get a 2. And look, we started with a 2 here, and now we get another 2 here. So I am saying that this number will repeat. All of this will repeat. So now let's look at our numbers on the next page. We got 0.5, 0.536, and 0.28, 5714. So this is 0.4. This is 0.285,714. And all of that repeated. So I'm going to put a bar over all of it. So now list the numbers in order from greatest to least. So now that we know what they are as decimals, let's turn 5 and 36 thousandths into a fraction. Just put it over its last number to the right. The last number in the right is in the thousandths place. So we put the number over 1,000. And now we can go ahead and reduce. We can divide by 2 over 2. 6, 12, 16 is 8 over 500. We get 2 even numbers. We can divide by 2 over 2 again. 268 is 134 over 250. Look at that. We get a 0 and a 4. Both even numbers can be divided by 2. So we're going to divide by 2 over 2. 2 goes into 13 6 times, 14 7 times, 125. $67 is prime, so we're done. So now, 0.536 was the biggest number. 0.4 was the second. So in order from greatest to least, the correct answer, 2 over 7, comma, 2 over 5, and then 67 over 125. Okay, I think there are examples. So now I'll see you at the end of the video for the recap. Okay, I hope you did well with these. All right, so let's look at what we have. We have 8 and then 3 over 20 and then 8 and 2 over 15. So we want a fraction in between these, and from greatest to least, so from biggest to smallest. So now 20 goes into 30 once, but doesn't go into 3, 0. We had to add a decimal. 20, we get 100, and we get 5. 5 times 20 is 100, and so that's done at 0.15. So let's do 2 divided by 15. 15 goes into 2 0 times. 15 goes into 20 once. 3 15ths is 45. You get a 5. 3 15ths is 45. And look at that, it repeats. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So it's 0.133. So now, which number is bigger? Is it 13 or 15? Well, obviously 15 is bigger. So from greatest to least, it looks like it was already written that way. 8 and 2/15. Now, when you're writing these up, make sure you put a comma in between two different fractions so people don't get confused and mash them all together. Okay, so for our next one, all right, we went from greatest to least. 1/5 is 0.2, so that's 4.2. 3 divided by 10 is 0.3, so 4.3, and then 4.15. So we want the greatest number first, which is 4 3/10. So even though we converted all of these to decimals, in your answers, you're going to use the original numbers from the problem. So that's why I keep going back and forth from greatest to least. So 4 1/5. So now I got to put 15 over 100 to make this a fraction. We're going to divide by 5 over 5. We're going to get 3 over 20. And then 4 3/20. And this is our final answer. 4 3/10 is biggest because it's 0.3 is a decimal. 4 1/5 is next because 1/5 is equal to 0.2 as a decimal. And then 3 over 20 is 0.15 as a decimal. And how do I know that? I could just divide 3 by 20 and come up with 0.15. So that concludes our lesson for today. Please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you get notifications when new videos are loaded. Thank you again.